Hello, hello. Welcome to the second episode of this Baldur's Gate 3 lore through. Today we're going to be picking up where we left off in the first episode after the carnage that ensued um, outside the gates between the inhabitants of this settlement and the goblins that are prowling these regions. So we're going today to look at some of the different people in this settlement, find out what the settlement is, and discuss some of the ways that Dungeons and Dragons creates people. But first, let's just spend a little moment taking what riches we can from these bodies. Right, this body is highlighted in red, and that's because this is actually a friendly that has died, been killed by the goblins during the fight, and looting their corpse is not exactly going to be something that the inhabitants here find favourable. But if they don't see us do it, it should be fine. Let's just steal that. Oh, we have a letter. Let's start with a little read. Rejection letter. A polite letter from the Baldurian Adventuring Guild known as Ansur's Finest. A letter stamped with the bright seal of Ansur's Finest, an adventuring guild based in Baldur's Gate. Citizen Ramira, we received your application with interest and noted your experience in the field with great enthusiasm. However, your letter's repeated reference to pay and bounty indicate motivations perhaps at odds with those of the Finest. We are sure you would make a fine addition to any adventuring guild and wish you luck in finding one more compatible with your own particular priorities. Regards, etc., Severin Basque, recruitment officer for Ansur's Finest. Ansur is a legendary character, a legendary kind of creature, I guess, that we will be encountering more of throughout the story, particularly towards the third act. But for now, let's put a pin in that one and just sort our inventory. We have a few things to sell, which is always good. Right, let's just pick up a few more bits.
What's hiding here?
We'll have a sort through our inventory at some point shortly. Right. Let me in! Well, they listened this time. So, this is the Emerald Grove.
There are children here, you fool!
We was running for our lives.
You led them straight to us, and you let them take the druid too? Unbelievable!
So, I think that the Archivist is quite a cool, dispassioned figure. So, we're going to say one fight just ended and now you're picking another. Relax.
Tell that to the dead at the gate.
Shut it, Horns! I'd be lying dead next to the goblins if you'd stalled any longer.
My duty is to this camp. Oh, God forbid you risk your precious tail. But I shouldn't be surprised. Full-bloods ain't known for courage.
You see the tiefling's jaw clench. He's about to erupt.
We could let them get on with this. We could attack one of them. But we're going to try and persuade them that more violence won't bring back those you lost. Stop and think. Okay. Pray to Ogma.
You're right. There's too much at stake. Worried about your precious hides? The both of you.
Enough! Squabbling is pointless.
The goblins have found us.
At least we agree on that.
Okay, so these two do not get on. And one thing to note immediately is this guy, Aradin, is using heavily racialized language when talking to Zevlor and talking about the other tieflings that are within this encampment. So Aradin was commenting on something like keeping his tail safe. Let's find the exact words that he used. God forbid you risk your precious tail. We don't know which god Aradin is talking about here, because of course there are many gods within the Forgotten Realms, but risking your precious tail. Why does Zevlor have a tail? Because he's a tiefling. We also heard the word foul blood, and particularly there was a reference to certain stereotypes that are associated with tieflings, and this one here was that they are not particularly courageous. So immediately you have a tension not only that is based upon the fact that Zevlor was considering leaving them outside of the camp because he didn't want to endanger those inside, but also one that is immediately racialized. And this is something that the narrative of Baldur's Gate 3 really focuses on throughout, particularly its first act, which is that the tiefling population here are a group that receive racial discrimination, and as we are going to learn, they are a group that is currently displaced. So let's talk to Zevlor and let's get chatty.
Forgive that display. Aradin's a blowhard, but that's no cause for me to join him. Thank you for your help out there. I'm Zevlor.
I'm the Archivist.
Well met. I should warn you, visitors are no longer welcome in this grove. Whatever your business, I'd see to it quickly. The druids are forcing everyone out. This attack will only strengthen their resolve.
Why are they forcing you out?
There have been several attacks by different monsters. The druids blame us outsiders for drawing them here. Nobody's welcome anymore. They've started a ritual to cut the grove off from the world outside. We can't stay, but we'll be slaughtered if we leave. We're no fighters.
This ritual, is there no way to convince the druids to stop it?
I've tried. Korga, their new first druid, won't even see me. You, though? I know it's not your business, but she owes you for saving this place. Perhaps you could persuade her. For more time to prepare, if nothing else.
Okay, we're a kind-hearted soul, so I want to try and help. I'll do what I can.
Really? We're messengers now.
We'd owe you a great debt. If we're forced to leave now, we won't make it to the city. You'll find the druids at the heart of the grove. Please, make them see sense before more lives are lost.
Okay, so obviously we had a little bit of disapproval I should say, from Astarion and Lae'zel. Neither of them are particularly interested in getting involved in other people's problems. Gale, however, is quite happy for us to do that. We'll talk to Zevlor a bit more in a moment. First, let's just sell some things.
Refugees, adventurers, no one in years, and suddenly we're overwhelmed. Well met. And thank you for beating back those goblins. Most brave of you. Is there anything you need? Act fast if you do. The ritual will be complete before too long.
Are you really locking down the grove?
I know it's drastic, but more monsters seem to terrorize this region every day.
And what about the people here?
We druids will be safe. As for those that took refuge here, well, may Sylvanas guard them as they continue their travels.
So we have mention of Sylvanas here, another of the gods. So Sylvanas is also known as the Oak Father, and he's effectively kind of the god of nature, very reminiscent of the Green Man from certain Celtic mythologies. He is basically this protector of wild nature and of kind of untamed nature in particular. So there's another deity within the pantheon called Shontia. She is associated with the natural world, but she is specifically the natural world as a space that is cultivated. So you can imagine that she is almost kind of the patron goddess of things like farms, rural communities that live off the land, but land that is civilized in that sense. Whereas Sylvanas is all about wilderness. So we're going to say, you just said the region's overrun by monsters. They won't survive by themselves.
As I said, it's a drastic measure. But the survival of the grove is paramount. There just aren't enough supplies to support everyone.
So this is basically the central conflict. You have the druids and you have the tieflings. The druids want to protect this grove. This guy, Aaron, is telling us that the grove and its continued existence is paramount. But there's a question here as to, well, what's the point in sustaining this grove if it's not going to get involved if there are situations or circumstances in the surrounding land that could require their attention. We're just going to move on, though, and say I'm looking for a healer.
I pray no goblin arrow has grazed you. Nettie could put you to rights. She should be with the others in the inner chambers, but I doubt she'll be taking on new patients. The grove will be locked down soon.
What are you selling?
Just some bits and bobs I no longer need.
Okay, right. We picked up a bunch of equipment. Let's get rid of some of these scimitars. Even more scimitars. I don't think we really need that short sword. We have some paintings, some plates, and some precious gemstones to get rid of. Some cups. Let's get rid of some candles. Sure, bronze ingot, silver necklace, a couple of non-magical rings. That's a longbow. We'll be keeping a longbow. Anybody else got anything valuable? I don't think so. No, she's just got her longsword. Right, that is everything.
Guide your path.
Okay. Now, there was some shouting over here. I am aware that a couple of our characters can level up, but I'm going to wait for a second just until all of them are able to level up so we can do them in one go.
Hells, we can't just leave. They're kin.
I'll not gamble our lives, our futures, on people who are as good as dead. We must leave for Baldur's Gate at once.
Can we all just take a moment, please?
What's the point in blades and spells if we don't bloody use them? We should stay. These people aren't fighters. We can help.
Or yell louder. That's fine too.
So here we have some tieflings arguing, and just as I was saying with the conversation with the merchant just a second ago, what's the point in the grove if it doesn't kind of get involved in these things? This lady Leah was saying, well, what's the point if with these capacities, these abilities, if we don't use them? So we have a couple of options here. I'm going to go with the persuasion. You should all stay. A single blade could make a difference. Let's see. Let's add, knowledge of the ages, absolutely. Oh, we can't add both at the same time at the moment. Right, we'll just add knowledge of the ages. Ogma is good.
Thank you. It's the right thing to do, and you know it.
She's right, Roland. We're better than this.
Zerg. Fine, I'll stay too. Lest you both end up with your throats slit by goblin blade.
Thank you, Roland.
So one of the other bits of kind of race characterization that is going on here is that these tieflings often use words that are from the infernal language. So how language works in Forgotten Realms is, there's a kind of rules explanation and there's an in-universe explanation which are slightly at odds. So the rules explanation is that you have basically a bunch of different languages. Most of them are based on race. So you have Elven, Dwarven, Giant, Goblin, among others. And then you also have more kind of esoteric languages. So these are things such as Infernal, which is spoken by devils, or Abyssal, which is spoken by demons, or Celestial, which is spoken by angels, or Sylvan, which is spoken by fey creatures, and that sort of system. Now, one of the things that's kind of interesting about 5th edition is the way that it originally imported a few other kind of race-based ways of thinking about language, which is to say that the languages that you could speak were primarily determined by two things when you created your character, and those two things were your race and then your background. Not all backgrounds provided you with languages, but races always did. So the races would always give you access to Common, which is effectively just the language that everybody speaks, according to the 5th edition rules. It's basically like the common way of expressing yourself, the lingua franca, I guess. Now, within the kind of in-universe, there are other languages that are region-specific, but they aren't encoded into the rules unless you kind of heavily homebrew that in. So within the area surrounding Baldur's Gate, you'd probably find that people were speaking Chondathan as their primary language, and then the common tongue would be kind of like a trade language that everybody spoke, but it wasn't a very sophisticated language. That's not what we're going for in the standard rules, which wants to simplify things like this, and it's not what Baldur's Gate 3 does either. But the fact that race has such an impact in how language is considered is quite interesting, from the perspective that there is an assumption that if you are a tiefling, you will speak Infernal. Now, this not only depends on the idea that your tiefling is going to have Infernal rather than Abyssal heritage. Of course, there is the option to have an Abyssal tiefling with demonic influence, and you can speak Abyssal instead. But the interesting thing about so many tieflings is, as we see in this game, tieflings can have tiefling children. But a lot of tieflings are not born to tiefling parents, because of this idea that the influence of fiendish blood can lie dormant and then resurface. And as we were talking about a bit in the previous episode, the god of hell, Asmodeus or Asmodeus, depending on how you want to pronounce it, he kind of reclaims many souls. Or I guess you can put it like, he reawakens the dormant infernal blood in so many people, and that's why tieflings become much more numerous within more recent history within the Forgotten Realms. Now, that's of course an in-game explanation for why there are so many tieflings and why tieflings have been moved from the monster manual, from being kind of an enemy NPC creature to being a playable race. But if you have this idea that tieflings, they just appear from within families, other races, they can be born to humans or elves or anybody really, then you end up with this rather strange situation where, okay, but how does then this person speak Infernal? Is Infernal something that is then kind of effectively baked into their blood? Is it like a genetic thing? And that's a difficult one, because it kind of implies an almost racial determinism within the kind of racial logics of D&D. This is something that they are changing, and something that they are thinking about with movement towards 1D&D. They're changing how they consider race to remove certain elements, such as the idea that race implies a moral alignment. Moral alignment is not something that is straightforwardly used in Baldur's Gate 3. You don't pick your alignment. It's instead something that's left a bit more nebulous, which I think is probably the better route, rather than asking you to pick from that 3x3 grid, where you align yourself between good, evil, law, and chaos. they're also changing it so that things like languages are not dependent on your race anymore. Because that there may be characters who, say you're creating an elf. Your elf will speak the elven language if they were raised by elves and in a community where that was the language that they learned, or one of the languages they learned. It's entirely possible to play an elf that wasn't raised in those conditions. But the fact that it's taken kind of a modification to 5th edition is another way of demonstrating how race is kind of baked in. And not only race, but how race is very specifically baked in. Right, let's do some leveling up. Okay, level 3 is wonderful, because now we have access to 2nd level spells. So let's do some preparing. Right, what do we want? Prayer of Healing is fine. It's great. You can't use it in combat, but I don't think it's what we're going to want to go for, so I'm going to go for Spiritual Weapon. And let's remove Bless, and instead put Enhance Ability for a little bit of utility. Who's next? Astarion. So, Astarion is an arcane trickster by default. We could run him as that. I don't tend to. I tend to go for Assassin because he can then do a lot of damage by sneaking up on people. I think let's run him as an arcane trickster this time. So in terms of cantrips, let's see. Let's go for True Strike if we can use it out of combat. We'll experiment with that a little bit. And then we'll go for Shocking Grasp. Now, his intelligence isn't great, so we're not going to be relying on spells that do damage. Spells that rely on attack rolls or saving throws are not going to be great for us. So I think instead, let's see. Intelligence saving throw, intelligence saving throw, intelligence. Let's go for Charm Person and Colour Spray, and for the expanded, I think we just go for Shield, just to give him a bit of defense. It's very easy to respec, so these choices may change. Gale. Okay, so Gale gets to pick 2 more spells. Let's see what we have. I think we're going to go for Shatter and Cloud of Daggers, because those are great. Now we need to do some changes here. Let's get rid of Grease and Witch Bolt, and just have the 2 second levels we just picked. And now it's Lae'zel's turn. Now, Lae'zel usually runs as a Battle Master. I want to experiment with picking Eldritch Knight. Yes, everybody's going to have spells, but I just feel like that's the one for the moment. So again, her intelligence is not great, so we're not going to rely too much on that. So we're just going to go with True Strike. If we can use that outside of combat, and then Blade Ward, why not? And for actual spells, we're going to go for Shield, Protection from Evil and Good, and then for the expanded one, let's go for False Life. Spells that don't rely on her intelligence that much, but allow us to use a couple of those spell slots to get some good stuff out of them. Right, Zevlor is in here, so we're going to go and have a bit more of an extended chat with him to see what is up. So you notice when you hover over him, it describes him as being a Hellrider exile in the top of the screen.
Have you spoken to Korga?
I want to discuss something else.
What is it?
What brings your people out into the wilds?
We are refugees from Elturel. We took shelter here after gnolls and goblins attacked us on the road. We were bound for Baldur's Gate, and it was too late to turn back. Elturel had no place for tieflings after the descent.
The Descent, an infernal conspiracy that had seen the entire city of Elturel briefly dragged to the hells.
If your people survive that, they'll survive anything.
So I hoped. But we've lost so many already. And more will die if we're forced out again.
I'm looking for a man named Zoru.
You'll find him in camp. What do you want with him?
He encountered strange creatures nearby. I wish to know more.
Right. He's been going on about something of the sort. You'll find him in the caves, but we won't stay here much longer. See that you don't distract him from his duties.
Okay, so we got a bit of background from Zevlor there. So he mentioned Elturel, and he also mentioned the Descent. So I think we touched on this a little bit in the previous episode, but the Descent is an event that occurs in the adventure, the module Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, which is one of the published 5th edition adventures. And this covers events where Elturel, which is a city east of Baldur's Gate in the region of Elturgard, is dragged into Avernus. And this causes a bunch of refugees to arrive in the city of Baldur's Gate, and the standard story is that you are then tasked by the Flaming Fist, which are the mercenaries that patrol the lower city of Baldur's Gate, to investigate a string of murders because they don't have the time to do that while dealing with the refugee crisis. We won't go into the entire story of Descent into Avernus, but basically the adventure covers a similar conspiracy to do the same thing to Baldur's Gate, and the party have to go into Avernus in order to save Elturel. So this Baldur's Gate 3, this story is happening pretty much in the immediate aftermath of the result, or the resolution of Descent into Avernus. The canon within the game is that Elturel was saved, and because of this, we now have a situation where tieflings are not welcome in Elturel. Elturel is an interesting place. It was considered kind of a holy place because of the companion. So there was a kind of bit of history about Elturel is that it was taken over by a vampire briefly, and it was saved from the vampire and the vampire spawn when a favour was bestowed on the city, which created the companion orb, which is effectively a second sun. So it was a massive sphere that cast daylight over the entire city, which led to the vampire's defeat. However, in Descent into Avernus, the nature of that gift is revealed to involve Zariel, the Archduke of Avernus, and that it was part of her plan to drag the city into her own domain. So we have some kiddies learning how to use swords. Times are desperate, so we've got child soldiers, but we also have this dashing young fellow to talk to.
Go on. Give me a best shot. Not bad. Again.
I can't do it. I'm not like you.
Umi, I don't need you to be like me. You just have to buy enough time to run. Come on. I believe in you. You can do this.
Let's use one of the Dragonborn specific options. Heed the man's words, child. His form is highly efficient.
Kind words in unkind times, my friend. Well met. The blade of frontiers at your...
The man's smile bends downward, and his thoughts become yours. You are the blade of frontiers racing through the wastes of Avernus. Just ahead, a diabolical figure, red skin, single curled horn, blazes with flame, bloodied great axe held high.
Hell's great fires. You were on the ship.
Yes, and we both carry parasites.
Doomed to shed our skin and become a lithid, or so the stories go. But we haven't sprouted any tentacles. Not yet, anyway. Could just be good luck. I'm not so...
Your minds collide once more. Will chases the fiend ignited with rancor. She is an infernal war devil. A threat to the living. Evil incarnate.
Shit! You saw her. Advocatus Diaboli.
Advocatus Diaboli. A devil's advocate. A champion in the blood war between diabolical forces and demons.
A devil's advocate? Do you think she'll bring the blood war to Faerun?
That ship sailed the Styx already. All I can hope for is to limit the damage. Her name is Karlach, an archdevil soldier I swore on my good eye to kill.
I tracked her through the hells to the Mind Flayer ship, but the damned Illithids infected me before I could end her.
She's out there now, preying on the innocent. I don't kill her, she'll leave behind nothing but a trail of corpses.
Let's join forces. I'll help you cast this devil back into the hells.
An excellent suggestion, but your party's full up. Still, when the time comes, call for the blade. I won't be long to answer.
Go to my camp and wait for me.
A splendid plan. We'll talk more there.
So again, Lae'zel is grumpy because we're not just doing exactly what she wants. And you know what? That's fine. She can be grumpy.
I saw you at the gates. You fight well. A few words for the kids. Spare a story or two.
Okay. My personal ethics are telling me to pick they're just children, why are you teaching them to fight? But, I don't know, I kind of feel like saying soak the battlefield with blood, do not resist death but embrace it.
Good job. Now they're even more scared.
I did great, didn't I? Well, I'm no Will, so do with that what you will.
Steph, Harry, strike, damn it! It's just not land.
Just not landing against a completely immobile target. Interesting technique. Having some trouble?
Nothing but. Goblins in the wild, out for blood, and the druids in here looking to kick us out. Or worse. We need to be ready for a fight. But I'm useless with a sword.
So let's see. We've got athletics, which I'm not great at. Oh, I think it's going to be insight. No wonder you're struggling. You've no balance. Space your feet further apart. Let's just quickly pray to Ogma. Okay.
I'll try and brace them better. Like so. Step, brace, parry, swing. Yes!
You really know what you're doing.
Found this by the road. Bet you'll put it to good use.
One last thing. Don't shout out your moves like that. Spoils the surprise for your foe.
Oh, yes. I'll bite my tongue when the time comes.
Keep training. In time, you'll make short work of any goblins.
Hopefully, it's just the goblins we have to worry about. Druids are treating us like vermin. But I'll keep at it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll just leave. So Lae'zel was rather happy with us there. That's lovely. Let's just see. He said he gave us something, but I don't know what he gave us. Oh, it was just a battle axe. There we go. So again, we've been talking a bit about the racialization of the tieflings so far, but I think one of the other things that we will get into a lot more as we encounter them, more in depth, basically, is the racialization of the goblins. So the interesting thing is that tieflings are maligned, In this specific context, they're maligned for a couple of reasons. There's a couple of motivations. One is the stuff that went on with the Descent in Elturel, and the other, at the moment, is that they are seen as unwelcome because they are damaging the Grove in some sense. Both of these motivations are tinged with a kind of racism. But all of the discussion we've had of the goblins so far, including the dialogue options that we've been given for the most part, have presumed that goblins are worse off, that they are lower down the racial hierarchy, that goblins are enemies. And this is kind of an interesting thing because tieflings are racially maligned, but as we've been discussing, they are a playable race. So they are listed in the player's handbook. Now, in the tabletop version of 5th edition, not within Baldur's Gate, but within the tabletop, you can create goblin adventurers. And it's interesting how there has been a shift in the presentation of this. So originally, if you wanted to create a goblin, you needed to rely on the sourcebook Volo's Guide to Monsters. Volo, interesting name, put a pin in that for a moment. But in this supplement, which was effectively a monster manual too, there was a few playable races that were presented. So you had the Azamar, which are kind of the counterpoint to the Tieflings. So if Tieflings are kind of influenced by fiendish blood, the Azamar are influenced by celestial blood. So they're kind of part angel, is one way of putting that. And you also had a couple of other things in there, like the Tabaxi, so the cat people. Those were all listed as playable races, but then there was a shorter section which was called Monstrous Adventurers. And this section was where you got access to goblins, hobgoblins, bugbears, yonti, and a few other different races, kobolds as well, I think. So at that point within 5th edition, the word monster or monstrous was very much associated with being a goblin. So the idea is that, yeah, you can definitely create an adventure with that, but they are marked as being within a different category. So if we presume that the other races are kind of civilized in some sense, these are the races that are outside of that category of civilization. There are some borderline cases with that, so tieflings are somewhat on the border, as are half-orcs. So the idea is that half-orcs, at least in their original presentation within 5th edition, really struggle with the rage and barbarism that their orcish heritage gives them, and that's a massive form of racialization. The idea that you have certain inbuilt traits that come from the ethnic category into which you have been placed, and within which you are recognized. So it's interesting to see how there's racism directed against the tieflings, but that racism is something that the game is calling into question. There are points where you can resist it. You can play as a tiefling, and you can actively say, I'm a tiefling and I don't agree with this. The goblins don't get the same treatment, because there is a racial logic within the Forgotten Realms and within Dungeons & Dragons more widely that suggests that this hierarchy is not something to be questioned. It's very much naturalized. And there are some not great racialized tropes that go hand in hand with the presentation of things like orcs and things like goblins. They have a long history. It's not something that I'm going to be able to cover entirely at this particular moment. I think it's something that we'll probably want to explore as we get more involved with the goblin elements of the story. But I think it's worth noting that there are ways that these tropes are used within Baldur's Gate 3 that echo that history, which isn't to say that Baldur's Gate 3 is being intentionally racist. I think it is in places relying on racialized tropes. It's relying on a particular racial framing. I think it's difficult to break out of that because of the way that race exists within fantasy fiction more broadly. D&D has had a massive role in popularizing that, but it's not just D&D. A similar thing can be discussed in connection to a lot of the kind of offshoots of D&D, so things like Pathfinder does pretty much exactly the same thing. One of the things that I find interesting, though, is that, as we've mentioned a little bit, there are some developments going on within 1D&D to try and move away from this. And one of those things, I think it's not Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, it's Mordenkainen's Guide to the Multiverse, or Monsters of the Multiverse or something. That is trying to represent a bunch of these different races on even footing. Obviously there's still implications of monstrosity, it doesn't solve this entirely, but the move away from, a creature is this race, therefore it has this moral alignment and has these values, is becoming a less acceptable shorthand. And I think that's really what the problem is with a lot of this racialization, is that it's a shorthand that really, it helps tell a story. It's really helpful if it's like, oh, goblin, I know that's an enemy because it's a goblin. But when you start thinking about the implications of that, particularly in terms of how racism still exists and operates as a structure of power and as a structure of knowledge as to how we know and encounter other people, that's a big problem. There's like a massive ethical implication within that, and it is something that I think we probably need to be more attentive to in unpicking, and we're going to have to do that if we're going to overcome these racial structures. D&D really operates in a way that fantasizes and fictionalizes a lot of these real world dynamics, and it doesn't always do it in a way that is very attentive to what that fictionalization does, or how that fictionalization treats these categories, or the way that it turns them into forms of knowledge. But that's something that we're going to talk about more and more and more as we move through this series. But we've got a friend here called Zorro, and we're looking for him, so let's have a chat.
What's up? By Mordai's eyes. Another one. My friend's blood not enough. Come to rip me open too.
In Kresh Kalir, a formal greeting begins with a bow.
Is this monster with you?
So, again, monster. This is the term that is being now used against Lae'zel because she's Githyanki, and there are certain elements of difference that are becoming depersonalizing. I would say dehumanizing. I think dehumanizing still works in a sense, because despite the fact that human is not the only perspective in this world, at the moment we only have one human in our party, for example, but the human perspective is definitely considered the default or the vanilla perspective. So legal scholar Patricia Williams, in a series of lectures she did for the BBC about racism, described how whiteness works within the context of racism as a form of exnomination. So she talks about the exnomination of whiteness, meaning that whiteness is the presumed default, the presumed normal, quote unquote, that is being used there. And it's similar with humanity in this. The human perspective is the standard from which all others are a kind of deviation, and it's the level of that deviation that kind of matters. So with your quote-unquote civilized races, the deviation is minimal. In the case of the elves and the dwarves, like they might be, certain human characteristics are culturally emphasized there, but the difference is not enough to produce antagonism. Whereas the more alien you get, in the case of borderline cases like the tieflings and the half-orcs, and then in much more over-the-border cases like your Githyanki, like your goblins, for example, that difference then becomes a point of tension, and that becomes a problem. Okay, so we are going to indulge Lae'zel a little bit here and say, yes, and I suggest you do as she says.
Lower.
Wait for the tiefling to obey.
You saw another gift. Where?
On the road, to Baldur's Gate, near the mountain pass. Saw us, for we saw it. Jammed its blade through Yul's belly, straight to the other side.
No twisting. Kin must have been in a hurry. The map. Show me. Up. You can keep your innards.
Oh, you're not going to eviscerate her? I was hoping for a show.
Cool your blood. I'll indulge you soon enough.
Lae'zel and Astarion, they just love violence. Like, and I think this tells us something. Oh, he's off. I think this tells us something, gives us an indication as to what we're getting into with the Githyanki society, and this explains some of Shadowheart's reservations, I think. Like, the first thing that she says when this poor guy says he cut my friend straight through, is, oh, didn't twist the blade, must have been in a hurry. The implication being that, Githyanki are encouraged culturally to like inflicting pain. One of the interesting things about the Githyanki in this game is the way that they are criticized. They are critiqued. And this is why we're trying to keep on good terms with Lae'zel and a few other companions so that we can get the most out of their stories. So she wants to talk.
The locals prove compliant. A useful trait.
You're a dab hand at interrogations. We might need this skill again.
A shell so thin requires little to crack it. The tiefling was clear. If there are Githyanki west of here, that must be our objective. Purification cannot wait.
Did you say tiefling?
I am unfamiliar with the... well, I shall not say culture. Custom, perhaps. You will educate me on matters of this Fey run.
No, it's Faerun. What do you mean, purification?
The Kresh holds the Zaithisk. It will cleanse us of the parasite. By covenant, I can say no more.
Well, by covenant, we'll move on then. Okay.
You ain't gonna shoot me. Your hands are shaking.
Put it down. She can't fight back.
That's the point. Get out of the way.
She didn't kill your brother, Arca. You're better than this.
Your mind wanders. If the crossbow bolt shot through her mouth, would she taste the metal before she died?
Shoot before you lose your nerve, tiefling. If you ever had it to begin with.
So, we have a nice illustration here of, again, the racial hierarchy that is going on here. This is the first kind of encounter we have with a goblin that is kind of speaking and communicating with us. And it's interesting to hear the way that they have characterized these goblins and the voices that they have given to these goblins, because there is definitely a sense of invoking a certain way of speaking that invokes class distinction. So there's a lack of formality, there's a lack of clarity, it's heavily accented in a way that the tieflings aren't, most of the other characters we meet aren't. It's something that is used to imply to imply, again, that racial hierarchy through invoking kind of class markers, but also through, in a sense, playing the goblins as comedy to some degree, because the trope is, oh, the silly little goblin that's being silly, they're kind of stupid, ha ha ha. We don't need to take them seriously as people. I think one of the biggest kind of racial failings within Baldur's Gate 3 is the way that, for the most part, we We aren't ever encouraged to take the goblins that seriously. We're only really supposed to consider them seriously as how difficult they are to kill, which in the grand scheme of things is not very. But this particular goblin, Sazza, we are going to defend. This is wrong, isn't it?
I didn't ask for you to say a damn thing! Keep out of it!
Let's move in front of the tiefling's crossbow.
Looks like the Absolute sent me a protector. You're gonna kill him too? You, move!
I'm going to say, no, shoot me. Should be easy, right? Pray to Ogma.
What in every hell is wrong with you? Damn you. Damn it! Why do you care if a goblin lives or dies?
Because she's not a practice target, she's a person.
Your soft heart will be the death of us.
Can't say I understand that. Not sure I want to.
It's alright, Arca. Let's go.
So again, the idea that this goblin might be a person, that's something that is kind of shocking to quite a few people.
Tiring business, isn't it? All this traveling and adventuring. Why don't we take a little break? Allow ourselves a few moments of rest? Gives me a chance to talk to you about something, well, rather important.
Rather important, no less. Alright, go ahead.
We've been on the road together for a while now, haven't we? Survived some perils, overcame some obstacles. Ever since you were kind enough to free me from that stone, I've seen you demonstrate remarkable guile and courage. The way you diffused the tension between Zevlor and Aradin, the way you stood in front of a crossbow to prevent a murder. In short, I've grown to trust you.
That's very gratifying to hear.
The reason I make a point of saying this is that I've grown confident enough to tell you something I've yet to tell another living soul, except for my cat. You see, I have this condition, very different from the parasite we share, but just as deadly.
What kind of condition?
The specifics are rather personal, but suffice it to say that it is a malady I've learned to live with, and not without some effort. What it comes down to is this. Every so often, I need to get my hands on a powerful magical item and absorb the weed inside.
Your illness causes you to consume raw magic. I'm going to need the details.
I can say no more on the matter. Not now, anyway. Just trust me when I say it's all of vital importance. It's been days since I last consumed an artifact, before we were abducted. Only a matter of time before my craving returns. That is why I turn to you. I need you to help me find magic items to consume. It is vital. Dare I say it? Critical.
I'd be happy to help.
You have my thanks. And fear not. Your implicit trust is well placed and will be rewarded with any and all means at my disposal. I'm sure we won't have to look very far to find what I need. Faerun overflows with magic-infused treasure. As do our packs, as a matter of fact. We've such an item already in our possession. Primed for the moment the need arises. I hope I can count on you.
Okay, well, wonderful. Right, let's have a chat with this lady.
Ain't sure why you're protecting me. Don't care neither. It's too late to make friends, warg me. My tribe's coming. They're gonna burn this pretty place for the glory of the Absolute and hang you by your guts.
The Absolute? If that's your god, I don't know them.
Goddess. We're burning her name across the face of the world, we are. The Absolute absolute is gold from the sky, she is. The blessing in the storm and the storm itself.
You've caught my interest. Have any holy literature on you?
My tribe can tell you everything there is to know. Absolute blessed one of our own. Priestess Gut. Got a whole lab set up. Cooks up potions that fix our lads, no matter how much of a beating they take. Could probably stick your head back on if someone was to chop it off. Mighty booyah.
I'm not saying we should trust a goblin, but she sounds very useful.
Again, the racialization. Well, I'd certainly like to meet her.
Get me out of here, and I'll tell you where to find her. Deal?
Deal. I'll get you out of there.
Then hurry up and do it. My tribe ain't as friendly as I am.
Okay. In order to do this, we're going this way. So there is a little back route that we can use.
Something over there.
If we hop over. Come along, Gale. But first we need to go down and maybe clear it out a little.
Glowing eyes are rarely a good sign.
So the Archivist has just noticed that there is a lovely statue over here. It looks like a bear, and that is going to be a problem if we don't first hit this rune. So let's get our wonderful sneaky boy to come over here and just hit that rune. So that's going to turn off that statue. If we hadn't done that, we were going to have a bit of a problem in the form of fire raining down upon us.
Still need answers. Did some bleeding arts show up to save the druid? I'll cut you to pieces. Kill 'em!
So it's interesting thinking about like the presentation of goblins as having these kind of voices, because it's very reminiscent of how the orcs are presented in Peter Jackson's adaptation of The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit as well. I'm wondering, to my knowledge, I don't know if this is reliant on even older tropes than that, but it's interesting how those class markers are really used to cement this idea that that we're dealing with something less than human or subhuman in some sense. Oh, we couldn't jump. Right, let's shoot. A critical hit and only 4 damage. Well, that's wonderful. Oh. Many, many misses. Right, let's by the power of Ogma, die. Oh, he brought his pet. Let's see. Okay. Oh, of course Astarion is not actually in the fight because he is stealthed. So let's just have him join the fray. And of course the prophecy that Gale has foretold will prevent us from getting hit by that warg. You've already done what you need to do. Okay, hit him. Oh, Lae'zel, that's a shame. Oh, Gale. Oh, oh dear.
Let's light them up.
Should we go for worm? No, let's go for...
A better position.
see if we can get rid of Gurza. We can, so the Warg is gone. Just have Lae'zel move forward, and hopefully we can finish off Worm. There we go.
How much further can I go?
Let's just heal up this little guy.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Thought I was gonna die down here.
Okay. How did these goblins slip into the grove?
It's my fault. I thought I'd given them the slip, but they followed me through the tunnel back there. I must tell the others what happened. I stepped careful. There are traps in these tunnels. And thank you again.
Okay, so we've saved that druid. Now let's do the process of looting. Few useful items. Ah yes, another of these statues. Don't want to be bombarded. Things are quite dark, let's just illuminate. Okay, so this is a trapped chest, so Astarion is going to... Hey Smurf, not a problem. Welcome. Okay, let's hope that Astarion can get through this. I think we'll probably be fine. I think we were fine. Right, now let's open the lock. We don't need Cat's Grace for this. Do we? No, should be fine. Okay, so we have some nice loot. Let's go back and free this goblin. Thanks, Smurf, that'll be great. There's so much mud. Okay. Lae'zel, are we coming over? Lae'zel? No? Okay, well, we're going back that way anyway. Right, Astarion. Let's commit a crime. Well, we'll give him some guidance, just in case.
No time to rest.
Ready to go meet my tribe? Just say the word.
Follow me, I'll keep you safe.
Lead the way.
Lae'zel disapproves so much that she's refusing to even look at us. Oh, Lae'zel, what? Lae'zel, come on. Okay, at least we're all on the same side now. Okay, let's run through the cave. Oh, okay. They're just returning to life to die again. That's interesting. We're taking the stairs this time. Too much climbing's bad for the back.
to be free again, gotta say.
You made me a promise, remember?
Never break a promise, unless there's something in it for me. I'll introduce you to my whole tribe and put in a good word for you. See you at the camp.
Okay, so we have rescued her. And that was a little tunnel that has led us outside the gate, but we'll be
So,
heading straight back inside the gate,
These prayers,
as there is more to explore.
will we survive?
Only if my people struggle. The only other cure is the blade.
Okay.
These tieflings prove fragile. Have a mind to end their misery myself.
Calm yourself. They're survivors, not soldiers.
I fail to see the distinction.
Right, we've spoken to quite a few of the different tieflings. We have discovered what's going on with them. There's a couple more we can talk to, but it is time, I think, that we spoke more directly to the druids.
Whoa, hey, can't say I've ever seen someone like you before. Go on, take this ring. It's lucky. Call it, heads or tails.
I'm going to keep the ring that this child has given me, and the reason I'm going to do that is because this child is a criminal. But more importantly, doing so pleases Astarion, and I'm trying to keep his approval quite high for reasons that will become apparent throughout the rest of the playthrough. Okay, so we're going to pocket the ring.
Hey, hold on, you gotta pay for that.
You're getting paid in experience. The ring is mine now.
Fine, keep it. Call it a sample, yeah? But you gotta at least look at the other rings, okay? I gotta eat.
I don't have to do anything. Goodbye.
You'll be sorry about this, Scab. Count on it.
Very shortly we'll be exploring what's going on with these kids a bit more. But we have a bit of a confrontation down here.
Let my daughter go right now!
She's a thief, hellspawn. And you will wait for Korga's judgment. Now get back!
Oh, let me through, Ragrasham, or I'll rip your damn throat out!
Okay, so they've been intimidated. Let's talk to Chimera.
We need to get Arabella out, now!
You heard the guards. They're waiting on Korga to give word.
I'd sooner trek through the 9 hells than trust that snake! Ugh!
I saw what happened. Why are the druids holding your daughter?
Arabella tried to steal their idol. Druids lost their damn minds about it. They need it for their precious ritual.
Oh, it's all my fault. I told her I wished the wretched thing would just disappear, or better yet, explode.
Now Arabella's being judged by a bunch of druids who hate us. That's not right.
Breaking into druid chambers to steal a sacred relic. Oh, she sounds like fun.
You've got your work cut out for you.
We'll figure something out. We always do.
Speaking of, we don't have time to gabber. You'd best move on.
We will take it on ourselves to do something about this. We're just not going to tell them that because that will cause disapproval from the usual suspects.
Rather you not get eaten by a bear.
Come, Magwin. Give him a chance. You, get back!
If it weren't for me, you'd be overrun by goblins by now. I'll go where I please.
Kick back! Force my hand and I'll show you its claws.
A moment, Giona.
What? Oh. I understand. You. Apparently Korga wants to see you. Go ahead.
Okay. So the symbol on the front of their clothing, don't know if I can zoom in and show it, the symbol of kind of the The leaf, that is the symbol of Sylvanas, the god of the wilds. So we have some ritual going on here that we've heard about. This ritual that is going to protect the grove. This is the idol of Sylvanas that the kid attempted to steal. So, as is standard within D&D, most magic requires some kind of verbal component, some arcane or divine words. One of the things that Larian have done in their kind of translation of this into this game is to have a lot of the incantations not necessarily directly translated from Latin, but very Latin sounding. I haven't had a chance to look into all of them specifically, but my smattering of Latin is enough to recognize what they're going for. So Latin is once again the language of magic, as it has been in so many different fictionalizations. Right, let's talk to this lady.
Speak.
It doesn't look like you're helping with the ritual.
The ritual is Korga's decision, but she is not our leader. Master Halsin welcomed the refugees in. I wait for him to resolve this.
Is that why you were talking with that bird?
Hold your tongue. The bird knows. She needs to know. You do not.
I help defend this grove. I'm not your enemy.
Forgive me. It is not you I fear. It is my brethren. More follow Korga every day. They are afraid, and she offers a simple solution. Eject the refugees, and we will be safe.
Sounds like she has to be stopped. How would we do that?
A druid and an outsider. We can do nothing without turning the others against us. Only Master Halsin can stop this. I pray my bird returns with news of him. If not, I fear for my people.
What happened to Halsin?
He left with the adventurers. They went treasure hunting in an old temple near here. Master Halsin did not chase treasure. I do not know what he was chasing, but he never returned.
Okay, let's leave. So, there is this other figure. We've already heard mention of this of a druid going missing. Zevlor was talking to Aradin about that back at the gate. Aradin is one of the adventurers that Halsin went with when they went to this ruin seeking treasure of some kind. And this druid is Master Halsin. He is the master of this grove, and it is in his absence that all of these problems have broken out. Okay.
I'm sorry. Please. I'm sorry.
This is madness, Korga. She's just a...
A what, Wrath? A thief? A poison? A threat? I will imprison the devil. And I will cast out every stranger.
A death viper. You weren't there poison before. A single drop of it could kill that child in a heartbeat.
So again, referring to a tiefling child as the devil, as a form of racist depersonalization. Okay. So, depending on how the scene goes, you can end up with this child dying, like straight up. This is not a game that avoids the death of children. Arabella can die here. We're going to try and stop that from happening. Because in this situation you have Korga, who is so easy to hate. She is definitely written as a villain. You have the choice to sympathise with her if you wish. I do not think that the Archivist has much time for her, however. Thief? Poison? What's this girl's actual crime?
Girl? You mean parasite? She eats our food, drinks our water, then steals our most holy idol in thanks. Wrath, lock her up. She remains here until the rite is complete. And keep still, devil. Tila is restless.
Come, Koga. We took back the idol. Surely...
Do it.
The snake's hiss of approval reveals its intentions. Should the child struggle, it is poised to strike. The death of a child. A timeless tragedy that never grows old.
There is, of course, the dark urge within our archivist that wants to see the world burn. So, we are going to try and persuade. And we've got plenty on our side. Okay.
Very well. She may go. Break your word, and my serpent shall feed. Sif, Tila to me. Out, thief. My grace has its limits.
Thank you, Koga. Master Halsin will...
Halsin isn't here. Keep his name off your tongue, lest Tila pierce it.
Oh, Gale has something to say.
That woman has more venom in her heart than a snake in its fangs. But at least the child is safe. Wise youth is not a time to be forgiven for one's transgressions.
Sounds like you have something to confess.
Ha! And you don't? You're wholly without vice or sin, or the occasional lapse in judgment? No. You don't strike me as quite that boring.
Of course, we are definitely not without sin, but let's talk to Korga.
Speak up.
Go on. Say it. You think I'm a monster?
Honestly, I just wanted to see what would happen.
Ah. You don't see a monster. You just look at me through one's eyes. You are like the devils. Where they tread, chaos follows. No matter. I took back the idol of Sylvanus, and the rite is resumed. We will seal the grove, free from harm, free of intruders.
Zevlor believes his people will perish on the road.
And mine perish if he stays. You showed great mettle at the gate. The mettle of a skilled sword for hire. I want you to provide your services to Zevlor. Offer to guide the Outlanders out of the grove. I'm sure they'll reward you well. They're to be gone before final prayer. If they are not, the Viper must strike.
Then it seems best I speak to Zevlor.
You will do more than speak. This tale ends but one way. With the Outlander rot cleansed, and the grove forever shrouded.
So Korga is not going to be persuaded to back down. So let's just have a little look around here. Okay. Can we read this without stealing it? Yes. So, this is the Rite of Thorns. Interwoven prayers and incantations snake across one side of the page. Written on the other are instructions for performing the Rite of Thorns. When the prayer is complete, thorns and bramble rise from the earth, protecting from harm all who chanted it. Right. The Archivist is going to be a bit risky because we're going to be reading things we're not supposed to read. So we've got the Lords of Madness, and we've got Soul Coins, a treatise. Let's read Soul Coins.
Keep your hands deep.
Oh, well, I'd love to, but apparently knowledge is being hoarded. Let's just steal them. Oh,
Alright.
let's just wait.
Time to skulk about. Don't waste a step.
just going to come over here and have a little sit. Right, let's read some things. So we wanted the one on soul coins, which is here. Soul coins are treaties. Academic disclosure. This research was funded independently and conducted at a site in Avernus, the first plane of the Nine Hells. Candlekeep does not encourage or promote the entrapment of mortal souls. Soul coins as a concept are one of merciless simplicity. The sum of personal and magical essence of the soul is bound into a minted piece of infernal iron and used as currency by devils and their cohort. They are frequently traded, for their value can purchase mercenaries, magical items, and even fuel the strange engines in the hells. However, there is a fascinating culture surrounding soul coins as well. I spoke to a devil who admitted she has one coin that she will never sell, for it was the bargain that got her promoted out of Lemure status. She connected me to a half-elf warlock who had promised his soul to a coin after death. I was able to look at his contract, which is reproduced below. The next 50 pages appear to be a painstakingly written legal document in Infernal with a headache-inducing number of footnotes. Been there. So, interestingly, we were talking about soul coins a bit in the last episode, but yes, this idea of minting a soul into a form of currency that is then used within the hells. So, there was a discussion here about a devil who admitted that she keeps this coin because it was the bargain that got her promoted out of Lemure status. So a Lemure is one of the least of the devils. The idea is that if you sell your soul to hell, if you're not minted into a soul coin, you're probably going to be immersed in the river Styx, and that is going to turn you into a Lemure, which is kind of this blobby, shapeless devil that has very little power or influence. So, being a plane of law, particularly law mixed with evil, the way that hell works is strictly hierarchical. So the lower the hell, the more influence it has, with Nessus being the seat of Asmodeus, the god of hell. But also there are a hierarchy in terms of different types of devil. So you have different types have different standing, basically. And the goal of all devils within that hierarchy is to be promoted. So the more souls they collect, the more influence they have, the more likely they are to be promoted into greater and greater forms of fiend. Now, the lore surrounding this is a bit difficult to kind of confirm in terms of its canonicity. So it used to be that if a devil was killed outside of hell, it would its essence would return to hell, and it would be demoted. Now later on, we do actually encounter a devil character that we can kill, and he does return to hell and is not demoted into a lesser form of devil. It also used to be the case that killing a devil in hell would be effectively permadeath for that entity. That was the case in 3rd edition. I think it was a similar thing in 4th edition. 5th edition, we're not really sure on how those mechanics work, but yes, this was about soul coins. Let's read the one on Lords of Madness. Of all the demon lords, few have made their mark on the world as firmly as Yeenagu. Though his ravenous hunger is claimed to be a mindless compulsion, there is nothing mindless about the thorough insinuation of his presence in the world via his chosen, gnolls. But how are gnolls created? First, a chosen of Yeenagu must do as their master wills, kill. A hyena that then feasts on the corpse of the chosen's victim, and a gnoll, is born of the... Did I read that right? A hyena that then feasts on the corpse of the chosen's victim, and a gnoll is born of the glutted belly of the hyena. Gnolls thus born are hunger manifest. They ravage any living being, tearing body and bone asunder, leaving behind only bones. They care not for wealth or material gain, only to satiate their hunger. That satiation is itself an offering to Yeenagu, funneled directly to him. Some might envy the gnolls for such a tangible connection to their creator god, but that envy would melt to utter terror as soon as the beast's rotting breath and wicked cackles make their way through the dark of night. If you should find yourself the object of nollish pursuit, burn your corpses, cover your scent, and pray to whoever might aid you, for there is no bribing, begging, or reasoning with hunger incarnate. So gnolls are these kind of hyena chimeric monsters, so hyena humanoid hybrids. They are, again, monsters. They're not included in the category of monstrous adventurers, so they are not intended to be creatures that you can create a character out of. And here we have their origin story, which lies within Yeenoghu. So Yeenoghu being a demon lord, which again is an entity associated with the Abyss rather than with the Hells. Again, Abyss and Hells very different. They're at war, the Blood War, which has come up a couple of times. So Yeenoghu dwells within one of the infinite layers of the Abyss. There are many different demon lords there, and Yeenoghu is the one that is responsible for the creation of the Gnoll. Now, the mentioning here of the tangible connection to their creator god. Technically speaking, Yeenoghu isn't a god. They're a demon lord, but demon lords tend to wield comparable power to gods. The distinction is somewhat fine, I guess. But all of the races within this setting can trace themselves back to various gods, whether those gods created them or guided them in various ways. So elves, for example, have their whole pantheon that is ruled over by Corellon Lorethian. You then have the halflings with Yondala. You have the gnomes with, I think it's Gull Glitterstone. All of these races have their own origin stories, but also they have their own gods. And the interesting thing is that there's a kind of hierarchy here between gods of particular races, so the Elven pantheon and the Gnomish pantheon, the Halfling pantheon, etc. The Dwarven pantheon with Moradin is another one, and then the gods that are worshipped by human beings, which most of the time are actually race neutral. So again, it goes back to that X-nomination that I did, that the human perspective is the dominant and therefore quote-unquote normal perspective. Now, there has been some work or implication that the gods in some of these race-specific pantheons are actually just aspects or reflections of the gods that are worshipped as kind of overall Farunian gods. So one example is in the Elven pantheon, you have kind of a trickster deity associated with the moon called Sehanin Moonbow. And there is some suggestion that this is just an aspect of Selûne, the goddess of the moon, that we will be encountering plenty throughout this playthrough. So the divine metaphysics are left deliberately obscure, but there is still this implication that you have kind of the normal gods, which are effectively the human gods, although they can be worshipped by others. But then you do have these racially specific pantheons, which are considered to be separate in some way. So, yes. That is part of what's going on here. Yeenoghu, again, you have this idea that gods are creating specific creatures, specific entities for their own purposes. So the reason that gnolls are evil is because they are the offspring of a demon lord. Similarly, with entities like goblins, they are often assumed to be evil because they are created by evil deities. So there is a whole kind of goblin pantheon where there's a god for goblins, a god for hobgoblins, a god for bugbears. Also, if you look at orcs don't feature pretty much, to my knowledge, even at all in this. They've exclusively gone with goblins. But orcs within Forgotten Realms are basically created by Groomsh, and they are evil because Groomsh wants them to be that way. So there is a metaphysical explanation to what's going on here, which effectively boils down to a metaphysical justification for certain kinds of racism, which is incredibly problematic, to say the least. And it is something that a lot of Dungeons & Dragons media, including, to some degree, Baldur's Gate 3, doesn't really do that much to try and oppose or critique. At least not fundamentally. But up here, we've taken shelter from stealing these books. We have Korga's chest. So, let's just have a look in here, shall we? I think we're going to be fine. Okay, we've got some things here. So, we've got a letter, and we have Faldorn's Canticle, the Shadow Druid's Doctrine. So let's have a little look. The book's spine is limber from overuse, the corner of one page is folded inwards. Balance is a myth. Where any clan treads, nature struggles. Unity is a fiction. Men of mere flesh seek only to tame beast and raise flora. We are the thunder, and we are the rain. We shatter mankind and grow new life in its place. And that's inspired Gale, because we've read something. Okay, what about this other letter? The marks crisscrossing the page don't look scribed so much as slashed. Korga, swamp docks, tree, meet me, alone, Oladan. Korga might be up to no good. Naughty, naughty. Right, let's just see if we can pilfer a few more books. That's Yeenagu again. That's the Balspawn Crisis, which we read last time. Oh, we read The Unclaimed last time. Oh, we haven't read the oral histories of the Gith, though. Okay. We may have to talk our way out of any allegations if we're caught stealing. So this is called, Oral Histories of Faerun, Gith, and the Mind Flayers. This book comprises several chapters, one for each cited source. It claims to contain first-hand transcriptions of the oral histories of several storytellers throughout the realms. Chapter 4, Baldur the Swift, 700 years of age, wood elf storyteller hailing from the Wood of Sharp Teeth. It took me several 10 days of quiet habitation in the wood before the venerable Baldur felt comfortable revealing his presence to me. The longer I stayed, demonstrating I was no threat to his health and peace, the more open he was to gentle inquiry. This tale, relayed to me on a chilly morning as we stoked a small fire between us, was like none I had heard before or since. I asked if it were fiction, and he insisted emphatically it was as true as his own right eye. Long ago, before my eyes and ears, before your lonesome quill, dear scribe, there was an empire of people, or perhaps only belief. An empire of brain-eaters, soul-wasters, they called themselves Illithids, the flayers of minds. The children of Gith were bowed, bent in service to the flayers, a passionate people made to serve a cold belief. The flayers were untouchable, their minds a great oppressor. No proud will or passion could break Gith's children free. Until at last a reckoning, its source unknown, its power unproven, but its events history-making. The cowed would not be cracked. Gith's children fought back valiantly, their freedoms theirs, the flayers bent and broken till today. So this is going back into some of the very, very ancient history of the Gith and the Mind Flayers. So as we kind of touched on it in the last episode, the reason that there is so much animosity between the Githyanki and the Mind Flayers is not just because the Mind Flayers are monsters, which is, again, a category we are doing a lot of interrogation of in this playthrough, but there is also the sense that of a history there, which is to say that the Gith, both the Githyanki and the Githzerai, were enslaved by them, and it was an ancient revolt against the grand design, which we're going to be learning more about over the course of this narrative, that allowed them to be free. Let's talk to Nettie.
I see you. Just give me a moment.
Is there anything I can do to help?
A moment. This medicat. There. It's up to her now. Life or death. Now, what was it you needed?
I'm looking for Nettie.
You found her, but I still don't know what she can do for you.
Do you know anything about Mind Flayers?
Why are you asking?
No good way of putting this. I have a tadpole in my head.
A tadpole? A mind flayer tadpole?
You know of them? Can you help me?
I'll do what I can. Come, follow me. I might be able to help. We need to be quick. This way.
Okay.
So, we're traveling with the famed Blade of Frontiers. I feel safer already. Darling, I'm hurt. I thought we had something special.
I'm just going to send Astarion back to camp.
Well, you know where to find me.
And that's because I don't want to lose approval that I've been working
This
so
one's
hard
the
to
same
build.
goblin as you. Attacked us in the woods together with some goblins. Tadpole crawled out of his head soon after.
The drow and I have the same kind of parasite.
Seems so. Gave Master Halsin a right start. It's why he joined the adventurers on their expedition. To find out what was happening. I pity you got me instead of him. He understands these things. Studied them. Still, we have options. All right. Let's see what we can do.
What's that plant? Will it help?
She shifts uneasily, hesitating. Something's off.
It might. But first things first. Tell me about your symptoms. Have you noticed anything strange happening?
I fell from a ship in the sky, but something caught me. It saved my life.
Protected from on high. Sounds like the drow. Master Halsin said he was tougher than he had any right to be. How'd you pick up the parasite? Halsin was desperate to find where all this was happening.
On a mind flayer ship, I was kidnapped and infected.
A mind flayer ship? But Master Halsin was sure. Look, you've been straight with me, so I'll be straight with you. You're dangerous. If you transform here, we're all dead. But you seem like a good soul. You deserve a chance to save yourself. This is a vial of wyvern poison. Swear to me, you'll swallow it if you feel any symptoms.
By the Lord of Knowledge, I swear it.
I hope it doesn't come to that, but thank you. Here. You know, I've spent my life treating folk and never once saw a mind flayer infection. Then suddenly, there's dozens of you. Maybe more. Master Halsin and I were tracking them, studying them, trying to figure out what the hells was going on.
Don't mind the door just going off in
Because
the background.
you should all be changing. There should be a small army of mind flayers out there. But you're not. Weird powers aside, you seem perfectly normal.
You must have learnt something from studying them.
For one, that thing in your head is like nothing we've ever seen from mind flayers. It's one of their worms for sure. But this one gives you powers. Telepathic connections. And it doesn't turn you into one of them. Not yet, anyhow.
You said you were tracking other victims. Did they change?
Hard to say. But there's a lot we don't know. Infected, folks like you, have been converging on an old temple of Selûne. And I've no idea why. When Master Halsin heard the adventurers were heading that way, he saw a chance to get answers. Joined on the spot. Whatever he found there, he didn't make it back.
What do you want me to do?
The thing is, I've sent birds to find him. But the place is rotten with goblins. None of us can even get close. You, though, you're one of them. Technically speaking, I mean. They won't kill someone carrying their parasite. If you can find Halsin and get him out of there, we can discover what he learned. And perhaps he can save your life. How's that sound?
All right, I'll find Halsin.
Thank you. It would mean everything to the goal. To me. I wish I could tell you more. But only those adventurers know what happened out there. All I can say for sure is they all went to the old temple of Saloon, and Master Halsin didn't make it back. Good luck out there. And if things start to go bad, remember the vial. Remember your oath.
Okay, so this was a little bit revealing.
Take a closer look.
A voice from on high. So there's something interesting in that scene which tells us, or communicates us quite a difference between Lae'zel and Astarion. So Lae'zel, her response is to approve of this idea that we should be willing to take the poison if it comes to it. Astarion would disapprove if he were here, which is why I sent him away. And the reasoning for that is because Astarion is very much self-interested, whereas Lae'zel has her code. And for her, becoming a Mind Flayer, becoming a Geich, is the absolute worst fate. Absolute worst fate. Okay, Missives of Candlekeep, that's a new one. We'll have a read of that in a second. Another Missives of Candlekeep. Fringe Philosophy Volume 5, Magic of the Weave and Introduction, let's have that. Scroll of Mage Armor, even more useful. Right, now we have some more reading to do. So, Missives of Candlekeep. A select collection of the most notable letters sent from Candlekeep. Many are dry reports of celestial movements or incomprehensible details of arcane rituals. However, this letter catches your eye. To the sage Elminster, over the past year I've delivered many of your letters to Master Gorion, so I wanted to be the one to deliver this sad news. Alas, he is with us no more. Gorion and his ward left Candlekeep soon after your last letter to him arrived. They departed in the middle of the night, but were waylaid shortly after on the road to Beregost. The gate warden tells me that Gorion saw to it that several of his attackers joined him in the next world before he was struck down. I hope this brings you the same grim comfort it brings me. Of his ward there was no sign. In some better news, I received your letter to the library and was able to find much of the material you requested. It has been carefully secured and will travel with this letter. Yours, in honour, Tristan P. Shale, librarian at Candlekeep. Postscript. I hope you'll forgive my curiosity, but might I ask, why do you need so much information about Balspawn? What exactly are you working on? So, Elminster. Elminster is effectively the great wizard in this setting. So, in other settings, such as the one that was created by Gary Gygax, one of the more influential figures in creating D&D, in his Greyhawk setting, it was Mordenkainen. That was kind of his character, this great archmage, and he was a figure that features in so much of the kind of D&D lore. In this setting, the Forgotten Realms, the great wizard is Elminster. Elminster, who is a chosen of Mystra, the goddess of magic. He has an extensive backstory, starting off from his humble beginnings, and he has been involved in major events across the history of the Forgotten Realms. But when you see Elminster, basically here you're dealing with the Grand High Wizard of Wizards. Now, the subject of this letter was touched on in the last session of this lore through. Gorion was an archmage of Candlekeep, Candlekeep being the library fortress, and he is the protector of the Balspawn that you play as in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. And in Baldur's Gate 1, one of the first scenes is you leave Candlekeep with Gorion, you are attacked, and Gorion unleashes loads of magic to kill a bunch of people, but is eventually overwhelmed. So, this letter is, again, a nod to that, and indicating that Elminster was involving himself in some way with the Balspawn. You do have a couple of short encounters with Elminster in the previous Baldur's Gate games, but he's not heavily involved. So that was the missives. Now let's have a look at Fringe Philosophy Volume 5. The publisher's note claims this volume promotes magical theory too radical for the mainstream. This excerpt is attributed to High Artificer Thaura Bryn of Baldur's Gate. I suppose they seek to silence me, believing that an artificer of the High House would not stoop to publish in any volume outside of the great Gondian journals they so diligently guard. But they forget that I am not so grand. Before I lent my name and my knowledge to the High House of Wonders and all the marvels therein, I was naught but a lazy farm girl who liked to look up. and that was how I first saw them, the slow and serene earth motes, entire mountains migrating through the sky above. It was later I learned of their origins, of the ancient Netherese empire that fashioned them, of the residual magic so potent it sustained them still. The wizards of Netheril carved marvels out of the mundane, lifted the earth aloft for industry, for sport. It was later still, after I earned my place at the High House, that I learned of the long shadow Netheril cast along the evolution of our craft. That their great flying cities fell in folly and flames does not diminish the wonders they wrought, and this stubborn aversion to studying them, to learning what they learned, is the very antithesis of Gon's teachings. Yes, many of the catastrophes inflicted upon the centuries were fruit born of meddling with Netherese seed. Yes, their last shining bastion fell into shadow, their lore twisted to Shah's dark and destructive designs, and yes, I say again, whether the High House will sanction it or no, to study the very flame of creation is worth it, even should the fires consume us. There's a lot in here. So, Gond is the god of inventors. Within Baldur's Gate, he has the High House of Wonders, which is effectively this massive kind of temple structure where his followers seek to invent and make new marvels. The mention here of earth motes. Earth motes are, well, as the name implies, motes or islands of earth, of ground that are floating in the air. And here it attributes them to the Netherese Empire. So I think my understanding is that earth motes were not really very widespread back in 3rd edition of Forgotten Realms. They were introduced in 4th edition as a symptom of the spell plague that drew that other world, Abir, back into contact with Toril, sent parts of Toril off to Abir, and basically you have those two worlds that collided, which we talked about in the last session. Earth motes have remained in 5th edition, so I think most notably in the city of Neverwinter, the 5th edition setting of that has earth motes, one of which famously has the brothel, I guess, or bordello, known as the Moonstone Mask, which is one of these kind of iconic locations within Forgotten Realms, is situated on an earth mote that floats above the city. So when we're talking about ancient Netheril, they will become more relevant, and some of their stories will leave until we speak specifically to Gale, because there is some wonderful ways that he can inform us about this. But for the moment, it's enough to say that Netheril is kind of like the Rome, the ancient Rome of the Forgotten Realms. And when I say that, what I mean is it's kind of like an ancient civilization that is seen as kind of one of the pinnacles of human achievement, and in this setting it is specifically human. Netheril did have other races in it, but it was primarily human, and Netheril was this empire where they had incredible access to magic, they did incredible things with magic, and one of those was the creation of what are known as enclaves, which were basically floating cities that were presided over by specific archwizards. And as was implied within this text, or mentioned within this text, that empire very literally fell. Its enclaves fell. The mention here of their last shining bastion is one of the cities managed to escape the fall of Netheril. The city of is it Tolthantar or Tholthantar? I think it's Tolthantar. Otherwise known as the City of Shade, and the reason for that, how it escaped, is it transported itself to the Plane of Shadow, which is like a mirror of the material world, and it got stuck, and it got stuck there for thousands of years. And one of the main things that occurred in 4th edition, as a result of the spell plague, is they got back out of the Plane of Shadow, and then you had this remnant of ancient Netheril that was trying to effectively found new Netheril, that was based entirely on the influence of the Plane of Shadows and the use of the Shadow Weave. We're learning about the Weave in a second because we've got a book on it coming up. The Weave is effectively like the fabric and source of magic. There is also the Shadow Weave, which is like a different version of the weave that is ruled over by Shah, which is why we have this mention here of Twisted to Shah's dark and destructive designs. This new Netheril, the City of Shade, was really influenced by that. And they succeeded in sort of colonizing a few areas, but one of the events that precipitated 5th edition is that the City of Shade went head-to-head in a war against Mithranor. And Mithranor is kind of the legendary capital of elven civilization within the Forgotten Realms. It was destroyed by an army of demons and then rebuilt, and it was this rebuilt version that went to war against the City of Shade, and that culminated in the Flying City falling onto Mithranor, destroying Mithranor for a second time, along with the City of Shade and with New Netheril. So that's some of the background that's going on here. Let's turn now to Magic of the Weave and Introduction. Few try to understand the Weave, a true pity, for only they who are truly attuned to the Weave can rightly call themselves spellcasters. Thus comes the question, what is the Weave? It is an essential element of the universe. It runs through everything in unseen threads. It is what makes magic possible. It is also, though I will not go into further details here, the goddess Mystra herself. See Magic of the Weave, Mystra and the Spell Plague. The weave isn't magic precisely, rather it is the raw material from which magic is woven, not entirely unlike how a collection of threads is shaped and formed into a garment. Those with the necessary talent and skill can manipulate the weave and perform magic by casting spells. Developing the skill takes years of learning and constant practice. You might have heard of those who can cast spells because they are born with an innate connection to the weave, commonly called sorcerers, or worse, because they struck a bargain with an otherworldly creature, also known as warlocks. Do not be deceived. Their magic is unpredictable, uncontrolled, and in some cases, not even rightfully theirs. No, to truly know and manipulate the weave is an art, but those wizards who master it will know the limitless power and beauty the weave provides. So again, I mentioned in the last episode that to use arcane magic is to work the art, and that's why it's capitalized here. Yeah, the weave is the source from which magic is woven. It's got a similar kind of imagery here to the magic that's used in the Wheel of Time. So in that you have the power, and the power works through weaving. You channel the power to create a weave that produces a magical effect. In this, the weave is the thing that you are pulling on. It's the fabric that you're then using to cast your spell. It's the body of Mystra herself. So when Mystra was killed, which precipitated the Spell Plague, that is why magic went haywire, because Mystra was dead and it's her body that effectively fuels magic. One of the other things that is kind of this kind of implies is the weave is part of the universe. It's an essential element of the universe, but it can be disrupted. So you can have areas where the weave is thinned or frayed, which will cause magic to behave unpredictably. So, for example, during the time of troubles, which we talked about before, when the gods were all cast down into the material world, because Mystra was one of the gods who was cast down, she couldn't control the weave. She couldn't maintain the checks and balances, basically. And because of that, magic went completely haywire. You could still cast magic, but you didn't know what you were going to get. It could be anything. So that's kind of wild magic. Or you can have areas where the weave has been completely torn away, and those are dead magic zones. You're not going to be casting any spells in there, because there isn't magic to draw on. So it's also similar to, it reminds me of how magic works in a couple of series by Trudy Canavan. So she has the Age of 5 series, and I can't remember what the other series is called. It starts with Thief's Magic. Millennium's Rule, that's the name of the series rather. And in that, magic is something that exists in the world that a spellcaster draws in and uses. So, for example, in Age of 5, I can remember a discussion about, or there's a point where it's noted that if you have a battle between spellcasters, one of the most important things is space, because you're depleting the magic in a particular area, and you end up with these pockets of kind of dead magic. Now that's not how it works in Forgotten Realms. You can't deplete the weave, but you can have areas where it just doesn't function. Okay, so those are a few more books. Oh, let's just collect some mugwort. Oh, there's a personal account. Shall we have a read? In Ketheric I see our failures made manifest. He did not fall, he was pushed. His grief was twisted by shadow, and still we did not act until his light was all but snuffed. Name drop, which will become relevant. Now, there's more books. Maybe. We'll see. Oh, there's a sightings record. Is anybody actually in here? No, okay. We can act a bit freely. A long list of owlbear sightings in the region, separated by date. The latest entry, written a 10-day ago, says cub. The word is underlined several times. 10 days, yes. The calendar in this universe is slightly different. You don't have weeks, you have 10 days, which, as the name implies, are sets of 10 days. There are 3 of them for each month, and there are a few days added in between the 12 months to round out the calendar. We've already read Mistress of Candlekeep. Ooh, Disorders of the Nerves and Mind, a treatise is a new one, so we'll have a look at that. Yeah, we've read both of those. Right, let's check these bookshelves before we get stuck into more literature. We've had the Magic of the Weave introduction, Mistress of Candlekeep, read those. What's this? Disorders, we've got oral histories, we've got Disorders, Fringe Philosophy Volume 5. On Death and Resurrection, I think we read in the last session, I believe. Do we have that book with us? I think we read it. Let me just check what is contained within there and see if I remember reading it. Yes, yeah, because that's the one that mentions Denier and the metatext. So, Disorders of the Nerves and Mind, a treatise. There came to me a woman, whom I shall henceforth call R, greatly distraught at the unusual tempers of her husband, whom I shall henceforth call B. 3 months prior, he had suffered night sweats, crying out from sleep that he bore the mark of chaos. 2 months prior, he'd taken to calling himself by the name Saravok. 1 month ago, he'd speak of little else but the throne for which he is destined. I attended to B at the couple's farmhouse. He sat calmly at the table, an unknown book clutched to his chest. I detected no curse nor loathsome spirit upon him, nor the presence of any magic. Yet, upon shining the light of candle flame upon him, he raised the book high and exclaimed, "The deaths they bring shall awaken the Father, and through them he will rise." I snatched the book back from his hand and flung it into the hearth, where it burned, not in red or yellow flame, but pure black. It left but a single scrap, reading, "He foresaw his coming death, and seeded his essence across the land." B shivered and sighed as if waking from a nightmare. He had no memory of the book, nor the words he had spoken. Diagnosis: unspecified neurotic enthrallment. Treatment: herbal tincture of garlic and drace sipped thrice daily until exhaustion lifts. So, the name Saravok, again, the villain of Baldur's Gate 1, features in Baldur's Gate 2, but is another Bhaalspawn, and is kind of the counterpoint to the protagonist in the first 2 Baldur's Gate games. Yes, so, something was going on there.
One day I'll catch a break.
Right, let's see. We've got Halsin's journal, and it would be remiss not to give it a little read. Extraordinary happenings. While meditating in the forest, Nettie and I were ambushed by a pack of goblins led by a drow. We had no choice but to defend ourselves. But that is not the extraordinary or rather disturbing part. On the drow's death, a parasitic creature emerged from the corpse and attempted to escape. I managed to capture it and have the host's cadaver here in my study. I've told no one of my fears. Nettie suspects, but knows better than to ask. I will investigate further before informing the others. Korga will demand answers I don't yet have. I had better record any further findings in a separate volume and keep them upon my person, lest prying eyes jump to the wrong conclusions. So Halsin clearly is aware that there's something going on with the Mind Flayers, and the implication is that there is something going on with these Mind Flayer parasites that straightforwardly precedes the crashing of the ship within this region. So, I think we've explored rather plentifully in here. So let's return outside.
I've never learned to converse with your kind.
So we have a man who is interviewing a bear.
Ah, my good friend. You were at the gates just now, no? When the goblins came? You saw them up close? A few questions, if you please. There's no overstating my interest.
Fine, ask your questions.
Lord. Now then, how would you describe that particular batch of goblins? Size, nature, distinguishing qualities?
You search your mind, successfully recalling various details of goblin behavior.
So, again, it's interesting here how the goblins are treated almost as a kind of object of anthropology. They are a primitive society. That is how they are constituted. That is how they are treated and how they are viewed. And the way that the game looks at this is, you search your mind successfully recalling various details of goblin behavior. You don't tend to do that when talking to the quote-unquote civilized races. You only do that when you're talking about these objects of knowledge. Goblins do not contribute to how they are viewed in the sense that they don't create their own knowledges that are respected. They aren't thought to have a perspective. They are the things that you have a perspective on. So we can respond with common variety goblins led by a lasher and flanked by booyargs. So booyargs are the goblins that use magic. Lashers are just strong goblins that lead. We can also just say that they're exactly the same, lowly and vile. Or we can claim that they were shapeshifted divas, which we're not going to do. We're going to just give an exact description.
Goblins were of a rare, jam-colored hue and wielded magic blowguns.
A mythweaver. This man has no respect for truth.
And the dragon they had marching in the rear, was it of the brass or silver variety?
A brass or silver dragon would die 1,000,000 deaths before allying with goblins. So this is because, as we touched on last time, brass and silver dragons are both metallic dragons, which are good aligned. So I'm just gonna say that because I'm a dragonborn.
Witnesses noticed a red dragon marching at rear. Last question, then you'll be quite free. Did the attackers rally to the absolute when they fell upon the gates?
Yes, they called out the name like a war cry.
They did, didn't they? Oh, curious. Oh, curious indeed. I've interrogated one, a captive in this very camp. She reports they've abandoned their god Maglabiet in favor of someone called the Absolute. The scandal!
Cleric of Ogma, what do you think Maglabiet makes of this change?
Oh, I'd imagine him quite displeased. Since their change in allegiance, these goblins are informed by a kind of strategy anathema to their kind. I, for one, intend to get to the bottom of it. I'm just preparing to head to their camp as we speak, in fact. If you'll excuse me, I ought not to dawdle.
What brought you to the wilds in the first place?
Why, goblins, obviously. Well, someone ought to chronicle these curious events. I'd heard the master of this place, a druid called Halsin, might be able to point me in the right direction. But he's been quite captured by them already. Ironic, really.
Be careful, goblins aren't known for their mercy.
Never you mind. Who needs mercy when you've a quick tongue, hmm? And an invisibility potion stashed in the back pocket.
Until we meet again.
So this fellow is Volo. Volo is another of these iconic characters in the Forgotten Realms. And he is basically a writer. He writes about creatures from across the realms. So Volo's Guide to Monsters, which is a source book I mentioned earlier, is obviously named for him. He also writes travel guides to different cities and stuff like that. He is also, as this game is already saying, he's also a massive fraud. A lot of people find Volo really charming and funny, and they think that he's hilarious. I personally have to admit I find Volo really irritating. I don't like him that much. I think maybe it's something to do with my values, but I just don't like him very much. But I will keep him around for now. Okay, so we have a young lady here who is singing.
Dance upon the stars tonight. Smile and pain will fade away. Words of mine will change. No. Become
Stay silent and listen.
change? No. Damn it!
Are you alright?
No. I'm moments away from a grisly death. At the hands of this bloody song. I can't. Nothing fits, you know?
Let's see if I can help.
It can't hurt. I have hurt. I have an extra loot, if you want.
First things first, what's the song about?
My teacher, Lihala. She loved dancing. Had 2 left feet, mind. I remember waking up one night on the road and seeing her, dancing beneath the stars, a huge smile on her face. Thinking of it now, my heart hurts. And my words just seem to crumble, like ash. Wait. Words of mine will turn to ash. That's perfect.
Nod in encouragement and gesture to her lute.
Words of mine will turn to ash when you pull the last light down. Yes, yes!
Don't worry, cry as much as you need.
She'd have said the same thing. That's the first time I've played since Lihala died. My teacher. She was playing her lute. We didn't hear the gnolls coming. There was so much blood. I can still smell it.
Well, you've come up with a fine tribute to her.
Lihala said that's where eulogies were important. They were for the living as well as the dead. I'd forgotten what it was like. That itch to perfect a song. The Weeping Dawn will be my gift to Lihala. I've a long way to go. But thank you. I needed this.
Too sweet. Odiously sweet. The vomitous gore within despairs at your kindness.
Our dark urge is not happy with that. Okay, before we head completely this way, let's just pop back to camp and let's collect. Let's just collect Will, so we can level him up.
The Blade of Frontiers at your calling.
I'd like you to join me.
That's the spirit.
Okay, let's level him up. Okay, so spells, what does he currently have? We have Armour of Agathis and Arms of Hadar. Let's add Hex, and let's just make his Eldritch Blast as strong as we can. Okay, so second level spells. I think we'll give him Misty Step. And which one do we want to go for? I'm just going to go with Pact of the Blade, which is what I usually put on him. Right. Let's just equip him. Let's give him a Great Axe. As a Pact of the Blade, we can give him attunement to that so he knows how to use it. Let's just check. What armor is he able to wear? Light armor. So he could wear... makes no difference really. Right.
Nothing hurts anymore.
Oh.
My, what manner of place is this? A path to redemption? Or a road to damnation? Hard to say, for your journey is just beginning.
What would suit the occasion? The words to a lullaby, perhaps.
The mouse smiled brightly. It outfoxed the cat.
Then down came the claw. And that? Love. Was that? They do know how to write them in Cormier, don't they? Well met, I am Raphael. Very much at your service.
So he's decided to talk to Gale, so we are currently speaking as Gale. Pretty words. If you want to threaten me, don't disguise it.
Why, I never. You're paranoid, aren't you? Must be the surroundings. Rather bleak and lonesome. One feels so exposed. This quaint little scene is decidedly too middle of nowhere for my tastes.
Come.
There, middle of somewhere.
Can we switch to the Archivist? Is that allowed? apparently. We are the Archivist. Okay. Can you be more specific than somewhere?
The House of Hope, where the tired come to rest and the famished come to feed lavishly. Go on, partake, enjoy your supper. After all, it might just be your last.
Are these theatrics leading somewhere?
Are you not entertained? Well, far be it from me to disappoint. What's better than a devil you don't know? A devil you do. Am I a friend? Potentially. An adversary? Conceivably. But a savior? That's for certain.
What makes you think I need saving?
Come now. Why play hard to get when you're in deep over your tadpoled head? One skull, two tenants, and no solution in sight. I could fix it all, like that.
Then fix it, or die at my hand.
Yes. I like it when my clients put up a fight, only to realize victory was never an option. Try to cure yourself, shop around, beg, borrow, and steal. Exhaust every possibility until none are left. And when hope has been whittled down to the very marrow of despair, that's when you'll come knocking on my door. Hope. Such a tease.
Take me back. After that, I never want to see you again.
By all means, bite the hand that feeds you, while you still have teeth. All those pretty little symptoms, sundering skin, dissolving guts, they haven't manifested yet, have they? One might say you're a paragon of luck. I'll be there when it runs out.
So that was our introduction to Raphael, who is a fiendish, infernal influence that is teasing us at the moment, offering the potential of a cure. We will discover more about Raphael when the time is right.
Someone singing. It's beautiful.
Listen.
Your favourite drownings will take place in shallow water. Just a slice of the ankle tendons.
You shouldn't be standing out in the water. It's dangerous.
Don't you hear it? It's so peaceful.
I don't hear anything. Come back to shore.
No. It's just a bit of water. I only want to listen. Just a little closer. Yes, everything's gonna be fine once I get there.
Okay, we've encountered some harpies. Goodness, Gale and Will are already fallen to the song. Great. Okay, so harpies. What are they? They are monstrosities. So again, we have the word monster. This is a very specific meaning of it, though. So a monstrosity is a type of creature. Basically, the monstrosity category within 5th edition D&D is meant to represent anything that is not reducible to the humanoid category that is also not originating from a different plane of existence. So a lot of creatures fall into this category. Lae'zel, no. Right, we're gonna action surge and hopefully 3 damage. Saved our companions. Oh, Wilfred. Let's hit it with an opportunity attack. Nice going, Gale. Okay, I think we didn't use his mage armor, but we're going to use Cloud of Daggers. And then we're just gonna move back over here. Ah, that killed someone. Wonderful. Right. Where are our enemies? So we've got one there, one there. There's one over there. Perfect. Right, we're just gonna move here. And we're just gonna Sacred Flame. And it's not to be. Let's just hit this one. Wonderful. So, Murkon is a kid, but as I said before, kids can die in this game. And I'm currently doing a run-through on Honor Mode difficulty. My second attempt, I already botched the first one, and the kid got killed by the Harpies. But you know what? That was... At some point, they have to take responsibility for their own actions. Oh dear. Okay. Let's just Firebolt. 1 damage.
No choice but to keep going.
Alas. Power of Jump. Oh, a critical hit. 5 damage. Oh, Will is lured. As is Murkon. As is Lae'zel. In fact, everybody's lured. Oh, that's great. Love that for me. Oh, oh dear. Well, he died. The kid died. So, Harpies, the main thing that you need to know about them from like the lore is they have this song that is capable of charming people into approaching them. The other thing, though, is interestingly how it usually works in 5th edition is the song impacts you if you fail the saving throw, but if you succeed on the saving throw, you become immune to that Harpy song for 24 hours. Unfortunately, Baldur's Gate decides, no, we'll be trying every single round. Does the kid have anything interesting on him? He's already dead, we might as well see. 15 gold. Can we talk to the kid? Is that possible?
The corpse has nothing to say.
Okay. Speak with Dead has revealed nothing about that poor child. Just a short rest. So, that kid is part of the little gang of people. I'm just going to jump over here, but I'll do it alone. He's part of the gang of kids that are criminals back in the Grove. And if you save him, you get in their good graces. But unfortunately, I've had a couple of goes where this has not been the case. Do we have a shovel? Oh, we don't. We do not have a shovel. We'll have to come back. I don't think there's anything particularly interesting in there. Let's do a quick save. Okay. I think at this point we've done most of the things in the grove. Let's see if we can get our way into the little hidey hole where the tiefling children are hanging out.
He stares right past you, as if you're invisible or boring. You see nothing out of the ordinary. As you turn back, the child slips between the rocks.
Let's pray to Ogma, and yeah, we'll use knowledge of the ages.
You find the edges of a concealed entrance.
And here is Mol.
Well, look who's come to visit. My kids say you've been busy since you got here. Messing with our business. Yeah? You took advantage of Mattis. Now, you're going to pay for it.
You're right. I won't mess with any of your gang again. Promise. Let's just give ourselves guidance and pray to Ogma. Oh, no. Oh dear. We've got 4 inspiration, which is the cap. And I'll give myself advantage with Eagle Splendor. Oh, I can't because I've already got guidance. No, it is not to be. Okay.
Not good enough. Still, you got Arabella out of that mess with the druids. And for that, you get one more chance. We're done here. Get lost.
Ooh, so Mol's not very happy with me. I had knowledge of the ages on intelligence, which is what caused us to fail that check. But yes, we have a group of underground tiefling children doing criminal things, which is not necessarily the best representation of tiefling children, considering the racism as we've been talking about, but that is where we're at. I think at this point, we'll begin to wind down a bit, but we'll do so by going back to camp and talking to a few of our companions. And why not talk to Withers as well? Right, I'm just going to short rest so I can use knowledge of the ages on any charisma rolls that we need.
We meet again, as predicted. I shall be here in thy camp for whenever thou hast need of my services.
Not to be rude, but what are you?
There are many answers to that question. None are important.
Cleric, wisdom. Focus on the divine energy you feel from his presence. Ooh. We're having some nasty failures now. Let's try again. And this time I am going to give myself Owl's Wisdom. Why not? Oh dear. No, not quite. Let's try one more time. There we go.
He has a divine aspect, yes. A reflection of death itself. Eternal and inescapable.
All that power. Are you a god's chosen?
I shall answer no further questions in that regard.
You were sorting something before. What were you doing?
Beyond mortal realms, there doth exist an amalgamation of spirits akin to thine own, ensnared by the treacherous cult of the Absolute, fell in
and its men. They bear great discontentment with their destiny. For a mere pittance of coin, I might summon the worthiest among them to lend aid to thy undertaking.
Will these hirelings be joining me willingly?
Most willingly, forsooth. Their passions doth run deep for what hath been wrought upon them.
Do you think I can trust these cultists?
Suspicion always haunts the guilty mind. My services are all that I can proffer thee. What thou wilt do with them is for thee to undertake.
Impressive. Are there other ways you can help us?
Should thou or any of thy compatriots perish, I will cleave soul to body once more.
That is incredibly powerful magic. Why is it so easy for you?
Because it is my calling. There is little else to explain.
Okay. So, Withers has incredibly powerful divine magic and is capable of resurrecting the dead, bringing back the dead for a mere pittance. As we read in the book about resurrection, it is usually incredibly expensive to bring back the dead, particularly if they've been dead for more than like a minute. But let's talk to Shadowheart.
Bloody hells. Literally. Just when I think I've got a grasp on our dilemma, a devil shows up. No matter. We've dealt with every other oddity thrown at us lately. We can handle this one too. Now, as for this Raphael, he knows our secret. He claims he can help. What do you make of him?
Honestly, I'm not so sure.
I suppose it was a lot to take in. A devil sought us out, teased us with his help, but he also stared as if we were the banquet, rather than the one on the table. We can't hedge our bets here. Best we decide how to deal with him, if at all.
Actually, if Raphael can truly offer us help, maybe we should consider it.
Perhaps you're right. Perhaps the devil has our best interests at heart and wants nothing in return. We could throw ourselves at his feet, be they cloven or otherwise. Or perhaps we shouldn't.
I'll admit it, I don't know what to do.
Clearly. And you know what? I think that's just what the devil intended. I know people who work much like our new acquaintance does. You don't need a scourge or a rat to break people. Fear and self-doubt is sufficient. When actual pain comes, the victim's already done the heavy lifting for their torturer. There were no right answers with that devil. He was toying with his food, us.
I didn't realize you were so well versed in mental and emotional torment.
Aren't you glad that I am? It's an effective trick. Watch out for it. And for Raphael.
What's the story with that odd little artifact you have?
There's no story. None that you're entitled to hear, anyway. Just forget you ever saw it.
My memories are all gone. Is your tadpole playing tricks on yours?
I understand why you ask, but memory loss is not as uncommon as you'd think. There may be other causes.
What do you think of all that's happened to us so far?
We've been through quite a lot, with likely more to come. Care to narrow it down a little?
You must have thoughts on our little stowaways.
Must I? Thinking about it won't help. We know what to do, so let's do it. Find a way to rid ourselves of these things. Personally, I think finding this Halcyon is our best bet. If we're truly desperate, we can try to convince that goblin gut in assisting us. I'm not too hopeful that a Gith Kresh will actually prove our salvation, but worth keeping in mind.
What will you do if we actually manage to remove the tadpoles?
I suppose we'd go our separate ways. Not a slight on your company, of course.
No reason for us not to stay together if we get on well.
Perhaps. Perhaps not. If we do survive, we'll have separate lives to return to. I need to get to Baldur's Gate. There's someone waiting for me there. Someone I have to reach. As soon as possible.
Seems personal. I won't pry if it's not something you don't want to talk about.
Thank you. And you're right. It's a delicate matter. Not something for light conversation.
How am I holding up in your estimations?
I must admit, you've been a surprise. And not an unpleasant one. Kindred spirits are few and far between for me. Besides, you saved my life aboard the Nautiloid. How can I do anything but sing your praises?
Turn to other matters. We should get to know each other a little more.
Must we? No harm in a little mystery, don't you think?
We have to rely on each other. Easier if we knew each other as well.
Easy is often less interesting. Besides, we've plenty of reason to rely on each other already. You can't confide in just anyone about a monster in your head.
Maybe I'd like to get to know you better.
Sweet of you. But don't worry. I'm sure you'll get to know me just fine by traveling together. No need for interrogations just yet.
If that's what you prefer, I can respect that.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll get along perfectly well.
Okay. Shadowheart keeps a lot close to her chest, is what we are learning. She's a bit secretive. Let's see if Astarion has anything to share.
Now there's a bloody devil trailing after us. And this gets better and better. Shop around, he said. He seems sure we'll find it. And he might be right. We've had no luck so far.
We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
If we don't know what we're walking into, that bridge will collapse under us. The devil has a plan. He's playing with us. He reminds me of, well, someone I used to know. Someone I'd like to play with. Creatures like them don't play games unless they know they can win.
We're not his playthings. We'll show him that.
Maybe. But he's not the only one spinning a web for us. This is no ordinary mind flayer parasite. Who tampered with it, and why? What do they have planned for us? And why are we important enough that a devil comes knocking on our door? If we find those answers, we might have a chance.
Okay. Anything else, Astarion?
You have a manner of irresistible desperation about you. I like it.
Tell me about yourself.
Oh, what's to tell? I'm a magistrate back in the city. It's all rather tedious.
Okay. That's all he's sharing for now. Lae'zel.
This devil, Raphael, flaunts his paltry wings as if he wants to impress us. You saw the red dragon slaying his infernal kin above hell's fires, did you not? Next to a dragon, the devil's a gnat. When I am Kithrak, I will take my Queen Vlaakith his head as a trophy.
Kithrak. What does that mean?
Githyanki Knights, the riders that chase the Nautiloid. They are the commissars and enforcers of my Queen Vlaakith's will. Vlaakith bestows no greater honor. To wield a Kithrak's silver sword is my destiny. I will earn my Queen's favor, and I will conquer every layer of hell should she command it.
What are those dragons to the Githyanki? Allies? Mounts? Pets?
They are gifts to my queen from the goddess Tiamat herself. They reside in the great city of Tularath, awaiting the privilege of battle. Do not pity them. They reap great riches from their service, gold and otherwise. Dragon's blood flows in you, does it not? Perhaps you might be availed of the riches I offer. We shall know in time.
Why were these knights chasing the Mind Flayer ship?
The Geich are my kind's mortal enemy.
It is not unusual for the Kithrak to give chase, to penetrate the hells. This is unusual. But I'm not one to question the wisdom of my queen. I can see but to the horizon. Blackest sight pierces the many plains.
Okay, let's see if she's got anything else to add.
Be wary of false promises. The missing druid, Halsin, was it? He may be talented, but only a Githyanki Savis can cleanse an embedded tadpole.
Are you sure a crash is our only path to a cure?
Entirely. I was as devoted to my studies as I was to my training. Each crash contains a Savis purification device. So I learned from the writings in the Kalir library. The library was a gift from Vlakith herself, that we may gain total understanding.
That kind of wisdom is very valuable.
Countless scholars roam the astral sea and beyond, observing the ways of our lessers, exploring planes so distant order turns to chaos and cold fires rage. The plains are ever quaking, and their peoples ever shifting. The Githyanki possess an eternity of knowledge. Yet we still collect more, infinities upon infinities.
Do you know much about mind flayers?
I understand much beyond your comprehension. More to the point, I know the cure for our condition. It is imperative we locate a creche. You do well to observe more and question less.
Do you know what happens if we don't find a cure?
Yes, in great detail. It starts with a fever and memory loss. Then you start to hallucinate. Your hair falls out, and you bleed from every orifice. Your bones will change form. Your jaw will split to allow room for 4 great tentacles. All skin will turn to gore and be shed to reveal new flesh underneath. Then you have ceased to exist, and a mind flayer is born.
Dragonborn, a loathsome fate, and one I intend to avoid.
Words forged in steel. May your actions express the same metal. We must find my kind and be rid of the parasite. It's as simple as that. The first symptoms should have long since started, though. That is what puzzles me.
You're worried we haven't changed? This is good news.
Yes, if you give it no further thought. But anomalies lead to surprises. Bad surprises. Besides, what hasn't happened may yet come to pass.
My past is a mystery to me. Could the parasite have caused that?
Ceremorphosis takes all of you. Mind, body, soul. An ordinary tadpole would eat at your memories until they were lost to the void. But our tadpoles are far from ordinary. I wonder if another factor's in play.
I have these urges. I want to kill. I want blood.
Many a good warrior savours the scent of blood in the air. There's no shame in a capricious murder now and again. Too many, though. And you waste energy and dull your weapon. My suggestion: attack with purpose and savour your kills. And if the urge proves too much, well, I'm sure we can find you a goblin or two to carve up.
Now again, goblins, right at the bottom of the racial hierarchy, discussed here in terms of just objects to be slaughtered. Now, this makes a lot of sense for a Githyanki to be expressing because the Githyanki have a very autocratic, fascist society that is incredibly enmeshed with ideas of racial superiority. But the difficult thing is that the views that Lae'zel is expressing here are not altogether that distinct from the views that we're finding from other supposedly more normal characters. So, speaking of race again, you look so unusual. Githyanki are rare in these parts.
I expect I am your first.
I know of Githyanki, but I've never met one.
Of course you haven't. They would have cut you from navel to neck. You are no less alien to me than I am to you. I know of your kind, but I do not often encounter them. Those diminutive scales of yours look like mistakes.
Be silent in the face of her goading.
Yes, best to keep quiet, lest any drivel leak from your lips. No matter. I do not intend to stay long in this place.
Okay, that's everything from Lae'zel. Thank you, Lae'zel. So, a couple more before we end for today. Let's talk to Will.
The Devil with the Silver Tongue. An old fairy tale my father read to me. The kind with a hero, a villain, and a moral. A farmer made a deal with the devil, so the story goes. In exchange for the farmer's dearest fruit, the devil granted him a bottomless coin purse. The farmer's dearest fruit, naturally, was no apple nor peach, but his beloved daughter. We can learn a lot from fairy tales, don't you think?
With the right teacher, yes. What are your thoughts on the devil, Will?
Refuse him no matter how tempting the offer, no matter how delicious the feast he lays out for you. The cost's always too great.
Don't worry, I have no interest in a devil's deal.
That's because you still have hope. But when he becomes your last hope, remember this. He'll require of you only what you're least ready to part with. And then require more still. You might think you'd give up anything for a cure. But the devil won't take just anything. He'll take everything. Well, now.
How does the Blade of Frontiers end up chasing a devil in the hells?
Karlach's fires raged in Baldur's Gate before she escaped to Avernus, as my source told it. And she was planning to return. One of the archdevils Zariel's own, chaos incarnate, a devil with pure fire for a heart. I made my way to Avernus to stop her. She fled from my reach, even climbed aboard the Mind Flayer ship as it screeched through the hells. I followed in close pursuit. I can't bear to imagine the lives Karlach might be taking, the damage she might be doing.
Who is this source of yours?
A powerful friend with a keen interest in privacy. I'm sworn to say no more.
Let's move on to other matters.
All right. What else is on your mind?
Tell me, Will, how did you come to be the Blade of Frontiers?
My father once said, one does not pursue a champion's life. One merely answers its call. So it was for me. I was hunting near the Cloakwood when I heard it. A child crying out from a lone farmstead. I found him in the fields, flanked by goblins. His mother's corpse blared into the soil next to him. I don't remember much of the battle, but I remember drying the boy's tears after.
What act could be finer than saving a life? You must have felt proud.
Proud? No. Angry. Angry at the monsters preying on innocents. Angry at the so-called good gods for tolerating the cruelty of the evil. Angry at myself that it took so long for me to see the coast suffering. The frontiers demanded a blade. And so I heeded.
It's nice to finally put a face to the name.
And it's nice to meet someone of your talents. Having a worm wriggling in my skull didn't instill much confidence in the days ahead. With you as my ally, the future looks a little less daunting.
I've noticed your stone eye. Did you lose it in battle?
A most vicious one, in fact. It's made from pure bloodstone, carved from the Galena Mountains just north of the Moonsea. A reminder that sometimes blood must be shed and sacrifices must be made. But that story is reserved for lifetime friends in calmer days.
Cleric, lean in and examine the eye more closely.
Tiny grooves spider across the eye's surface. It resembles a sending stone, used to confer with distant contacts.
Isn't your eye a sending stone?
A sending stone? Nothing so special, I assure you.
His breathing quickens, his jaw tenses. Will is keeping something from you. A strange sensation courses through you, and your companion's mind unfolds, secrets half revealed.
Thanks for watching, Smurf. Okay, Illithid Wisdom. Let's enter his mind. What isn't he telling you? I think a 22 will just about make that DC.
What are you?
A shiver runs across your mind. You feel sated. Your right eye vibrates, and a woman's voice echoes in your head. I've a sweet tooth, and devils on the menu. Beyond the voice you find only shadow. Piece of Will's mind locked away from intruders.
Keep out of my mind. I told you, the eye's a rock, nothing more. And that's the end of it.
Will is keeping something from us. But let's see. Let's move on to some other matters. I've got no memory of my past. Could the parasite have done that?
Seems unusual to me. Then again, we're talking about tadpoles inserted into our brains by rubber-skinned tentacle monsters. There's nothing usual about it. All the more reason to stick close. I think you'll agree.
I've got this bloodthirst, an urge to destroy, maim, kill.
Anger. I understand. We've been preyed on by illithids, suffered insertion of a mind-bending worm. Bloodthirst is another matter. But perhaps not too big of one, if it's a devil or demon's flesh you're wanting to tear.
Okay, we're going to leave. So, oh, hang on, we've got conversations popping up all over the place. Right, I think that at this point, I'm going to stop, end this episode, because I think that we've got a lot more stuff to sink our teeth into in the next one. And I think 3 hours, roughly speaking, is a perfect point to stop. So, thank you for joining me for the second episode of my Baldur's Gate 3 lore through. I hope that you have had an interesting time hearing some of the background information, background lore, and we will be continuing very shortly. But until then, stay safe, stay well, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.